everyone. I am going to be introducing author Catherine Mckenzie, and we're going to be talking about her brand new book, The Good Liar. It's really good. And it's late here, but it's all good. I'm getting all this different kind of lighting, which I'm really loving. I'm thinking maybe I should do more interviews at night. But anyway, this book comes out this week. All right, when you're going to be watching, when you see this video, it'll be this week. So everyone, here is Catherine. Hi everyone, I am so excited to be speaking with author Catherine Mckenzie, and we're going to be talking about her brand new book, The Good Liar, and she's got the copy of it right there. When I first started reading this book, I was like, wait, I wonder who that is, but we know. I think we know now who that is, but...
You know at the end?
I think you know. Yeah.
I think I've had people say, I'm still not sure who the good liar is, but...
Well, they're not all, they're all good liars.
Yeah.
I guess that's the point, though. Really? Right?
Who is the best liar?
Who is the best liar? Oh my gosh, this book is so good. I don't even know, you can tell me on Amazon, some of these thrillers, they call them domestic noir, and I'm sure I'm saying this wrong because I'm not French, but in my bad Pennsylvania Dutch accent. So is it under that, this book? Is that what it's considered?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many names for it: domestic suspense, domestic thrillers, domestic noir, griplit. But certainly, sort of in the wave of books that Gone Girl started. Gone Girl, Girl on a Train.
Yeah, and they just keep getting better. Okay, I have been reading so many thrillers, and my daughter, who does the, she'll be watching this. She said to me the other day, she's like, I'm starting to have nightmares. Can you interview people that write something else? Because it's a different kind of nightmare. Like, those neighbor books? I'm just going to call them the neighbor books, okay? Mm-hmm. I loved each and every one of them. The authors were amazing, but I'd go out to my car and I'd look at my neighbor a little bit differently. I was like, do we know each other? Are you stalking me?
Yeah, my last book was a neighbor book.
Was it?
And it was supposed to be called Neighbors too, and too many people beat me to the punch with that title. Though there's a new book called The Neighbors right now. So
I just interviewed her, and she's wonderful. And it was a great book, but I have it's like they go in the titles kind of go in waves, and it's like I have my neighbor books,
Well, for me, that book, I mean, I had that title before there were any books named Neighbors. And, because it takes several years, right, between when you think of a book and then you write the book and then it edits and then it comes out. It's often a 2 or 3 year process. And I actually remember messaging with Sarah Pekkanen, and, she was like, oh, yeah, I'm like, oh, what's your book about? And she's like, oh, it's this and da da da. And it's called at the time it was actually just called The Neighbors, but she changed it to The Perfect Neighbors. And I was like, so my book is called The Neighbors? Like, what is your book about? Anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and now
there's something in the zeitgeist also, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like, Hannah has The Neighbors, and then Sally Hepworth has The Neighbor Next Door. So, I mean, there's just all kinds of neighbors going on right
now. There are 2 books called The Good Neighbor that came out on the same day, basically, in 2014 or 15. So, yeah.
Yeah. But now I'm finding, the cover is so important because, people on Instagram, these crazy book people, I think I'm a crazy book people, but they're crazier book people. And they make this artwork out of the covers, and they'll make artwork out of a book. I mean, just out of the colors. And I'm just like, wow. And I would love to do that. I would love to decorate my house in book,
Well, I think the most amazing one are those book face ones, where they hold the book up and
then half the face. Yeah.
I was trying to think about how to do a book face one of this, but yeah. Yeah. I don't have a skill for that, but those are amazing.
I know the people that do, though, I'm totally impressed by them. And that book cover, the color is actually really popular with that muted, green, teal, blue going on. And let me see the writing again. Is it in, what color is the writing? Yes, and that.
Yeah, it's red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the red. So that's like really, it's very cool. I love that.
Yeah, and I don't have I have the hardcover somewhere else in my house, but the hardcover is amazing. If you take off the outside jacket, they've taken, so this image is made from two images, actually. There's an image of a street with buildings, and then her face is overlaid. And they took the underlying image, and that's on the book under the dust jacket in red. It looks incredible.
Oh, that is so. That's what I'm saying. It's like not just the process of naming the book, but then the book cover, because it has to be just so. And
Sure.
And then it's like you just get to write the book. Okay, you just.
Well, I have input on the cover also.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's good. That's good. A lot of authors don't have any input. They just have to take it and then. So, okay, let's see if I can try to summarize this book for everybody, because I don't want to give away anything. So I'm going to try to So
no spoilers.
I know spoilers. We don't do any spoilers. So I try to write the main characters. So we've got Caitlin, and then we have
Kate.
we have Franny and Cecily and Tom. And then I was like, wait a second, what's Kate's husband's name?
Yeah, good question. John? No. John. Paul? What is his name?
Very
John?
Basic, like Tom. It's like
Tom.
No, but Kate isn't that Cecily's husband?
No, sorry, Cecily's husband is Tom.
Right, Kate's husband.
And Kate's husband is, you know what the problem is? I've written a whole other book.
Since that book?
Those characters' names are in my head, and wow, hold on a second. I'm gonna figure this out.
But I was actually, I got to the end of the book, and I was like, I didn't write it down, and I'm like, wait a second, I didn't write her husband's name down. But anyway, it's pretty simple. You kept the names very simple, and
yeah. So simple, I can't even remember them myself. So that's good, eh?
So simple that, he's kind of plays a big part towards the end.
Joshua.
There we go. He plays a big part towards the end. But anyway, so we have these people whose lives intersect in a way that they all work in this building, right? I mean, not all of them. I shouldn't say all of them. Some of them work in this building. But it's like a 9/11. And at the beginning of the book, I was like, this is brilliant. This is so brilliant because it's far enough removed now. We're far enough removed from 9/11 that that it takes on this, like what happens to these people. And now I'm in Pennsylvania. I'm about 2 hours from New York City. 9/11 was a big deal. It was a really big deal because my mom was in a plane that day. I mean, it was a big deal because I knew people and, but this book kind of takes it like the news coverage of these people and what they had to go through afterwards, which, for some reason, after the tragedy, it's like, yeah, their lives go on and every once in a while now you get an update, but it really isn't as big a news as it used to be. But this is taking it a year. And I remember that year. It was like that year anniversary, So
me too.
I applaud you. I applaud you for the concept because it was.
Well, no, I think it is a bit of a benefit. So, living in Montreal, obviously that day, I remember everything about that day. I had lots of my close friends were living in New York. I have friends who, I have one friend who took a picture of the second plane going into the building from his rooftop. But and then there was hours where I didn't even know where all my friends were because I didn't know what buildings they worked in. Right. And one of my friends was actually in, I think 7 World Trade, that day.
Right.
And, saw horrible, terrible things, obviously. Right. But, so I had a personal connection, but I experienced it more as a news story. Right. And so, I think it's always interesting when you see, for example, the main character, Cecily, they take a picture of her and it becomes a kind of iconic picture of the day. And I've always thought it was interesting about who's behind these pictures. Like, what's their life like? But also, what impact does becoming the focus or the poster child of a tragedy have on your life? So she had the tragedy of losing her husband, but on top of that, everybody wants her to come speak at events and help fundraise. And because she is the poster child of this tragedy, And she's sort of stuck with the guilt of like she doesn't want to do any of it. She's not somebody who likes to put herself forward in that way, but she doesn't feel like she has a choice. And so I think, the remove of it being 15 years later and then the events taking place a year after this explosion, which, to be clear, is not a terrorist attack. And,
Right.
There are lots of things that
There's
are different
there's
than
definitely
9/11. But I thought it was a good way of trying to explore the sort of story behind these stories that we follow really closely for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and sometimes
right.
months. But then at some point we kind of tuck them away and we move on with our lives. And the people who this happened to don't have that luxury all the time. So that was one of the things that I wanted to explore. And I was obviously cognizant and nervous about, would people feel like it was exploiting 9/11 or insensitive to 9/11? And, so far nobody said that to me. I really hope that isn't the case. Obviously I don't think I downplay the horror that people go through in those types of tragedies. But it is an interesting moment, a storytelling moment in in people's lives. And I think also something that I've explored in other books even is this idea of what happens when people die suddenly, like what gets revealed about them.
Right.
Because, unless you're 90 years old and you planned your death, most of us die when we're not expecting it. And I ask people this question, you don't have to answer, but I say, if I told you you were going to die today, what's the one thing that you wish that you could go destroy or hide or that people would know about you? And something pops into everybody's head, even if they've led a completely innocent life, right? Because we all have secrets,
Right.
and we all hang on to things that maybe we shouldn't. And I think that these types of stories help us explore that fear and what people might do, what extremes people might go to protect those kinds of secrets. So
That's really interesting because I hadn't really thought of it like that. But my mom died of cancer. Okay. So she
Mhm.
had a certain period of time that she did understand, okay, that she was going to
Right.
die. So she would have lawyers and clergy and, different people in. And I remember at one point she kicked me out of the room. And I was like, what are you kicking me out of the room for? Like, I'm taking care of all this business stuff for her, right?
Right.
And then,
Right.
this clergy walks in and she was like, yeah, you're going to have to go. And I'm like, I know your life. And then afterwards, I was like, maybe I don't.
Maybe you don't.
maybe she wanted to talk to somebody about things I don't know. And then it was like, well, I'm good. I'm good with that.
Yeah, you need to know that. Okay.
It's your mother. But yeah, I love that. I never really thought about it like that, but I loved Cecily. Okay. Because even though Cecily she's a huge part. She's like, I would say half, right? Half the chapter.
You definitely spend the most time with Cecily in the book.
Okay, right. So I loved her because I loved her freak out moments. Okay, because she was trying to keep it all together. She was like, I can handle this. I can handle this. I can handle the kids. I can handle my husband dying. I can handle, I've got this. But then there were certain points when you were like going back and, because it goes back and forth between past and present, and her freakouts. I was like, yes, you go, and I love seeing that side of her, because Kate. We're always suspicious of Kate, and then of course we have good reason to be, and then the way you build her up, and it's not like I didn't have there's not like I love how one of the questions you had in the back for book club people was like, if you could walk away. Well, when I was going through my divorce, and I have 6 children, but my last 2 were with me at the time, and I said to a friend of mine at the time, I was like, I could go to an airport right now and take the first plane somewhere. I don't even care. And then she told me that was normal. And I was like, oh, because I felt like the worst mom ever. But I just, it was like everything was coming down. And I was like, I can't do this. But there's something to sticking it out, let me tell you. But, but I love that you asked that question, because I do think as women and maybe men too, it's like all of a sudden you get all of this. And then it's like, what would it take? It didn't even take that much for me to be like, I don't have answers anymore. And I've got a lot of people looking at me for answers, and I don't have them anymore,
I think that's sort of a basic fantasy, like a runaway fantasy is kind of a basic fantasy that a lot of people have in various circumstances. And, it maybe the writer brain that says, okay, well, what happens if somebody actually gives into that, or if they're given a moment where they can do that in a way that feels less like a betrayal, that without giving anything away, less of a betrayal than it might at other moments.
Right.
Interesting. After I wrote the first draft of The Good Liar, I heard an interview on the radio about a man who had abandoned his family for like 20, 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd moved to Australia sort of dead of night, walked away from his family, and he came back, and he tried to reconcile with them. And, he had a story to tell.
Right.
And I guess, part of the challenge to me as a writer was, could I make someone who did something like that sympathetic? Or even if not sympathetic, 'cause I don't know if she's sympathetic, but where you could at least understand her motivations, that they might speak to something that we've all thought of in some dark night of the soul. And this idea that it's not so far away, like, as you said, it might not take that much to actually push you to do something like that if it were available. It's a book, right? So the hurdles that we might encounter in real life in doing that sort of thing, some of them are removed for her, obviously. But yeah, I've been interested in that idea for a long time, and in particular the idea that somebody might use a tragedy to run away.
Yeah. As a way to, and it's interesting because you think the strong thing to do is to go away, because you're like, well, they're better off. I can just run away, like you think you're being like, that would be, but like once you get past that, you realize even, the strongest thing you could do is stay. Like the strongest thing to do is staying, because I don't know. It's just, and she finds this stuff all out, and we don't want to get into that, but it's like, it's just like, I always, when I would fantasize about it, I thought I was being really strong about it. Like, you know what? Maybe they are better off without me. Maybe they are, all those thoughts start going through your head,
I think they're common thoughts. I had a friend go through a terrible divorce, and she articulated those thoughts, like, maybe my kids would be better off without me. And I'm like, are you insane? No. But I do think, in more extreme cases like suicide ideation,
right,
often that is what they are thinking, right? People are thinking in those moments, everyone would be better off without me. I'm just a burden. And if I remove myself from the situation, they'll be sad, but they'll be able to move on.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think, without getting like too heavy about it or whatever, obviously, yeah, I mean, she has a lot of dark stuff that happened to her in her life. Again, not as an excuse, but as an explanation for her behavior. And we don't want to write books about boring people who like go to the grocery store and pay their taxes. Like, that's not interesting.
Exactly. That's what I say to people. Like, I'll read reviews on Amazon and they're like, she was too crazy for me. I'm like, what do you want? Like, do you want this person that isn't crazy? Like, how are you going to write a book about someone who isn't crazy? Like, that's just not you. They think that's what they want, but it's like,
but they don't. They actually don't. No. But,
and you as the author.
People complain about unlikable characters.
Right.
And it's like, well, if you liked everyone in the book, probably wouldn't be that interesting. And because that's not life. But also, I think there's a difference between someone who's an unlikable character but someone who has charisma, right? If you look at Don Draper in Mad Men, the guy's behavior is despicable.
I know.
It's despicable.
Right.
But he's charismatic and appealing, and you want to know what happens to him. So
absolutely.
I don't care so much about writing quote-unquote likable characters. I want to write characters that you want to know what happened to them.
Absolutely.
You're willing to give them the time to see what happened with them. And where if I failed is if you don't care.
Right.
Like, whether they're good, bad, indifferent, if you don't care what happened to them, then I failed in my job.
Right. And that's exactly, I mean, I read this book so fast. I can't even tell you how fast I read this book. I mean, because I did care. I wanted to know what was going on with them. And I love the way you wove their past into, it was so different than what, like, because you didn't always like cut a timeline. It was kind of like you wove it into like a story. that they were either
Yeah.
telling or going through in their brain or having a dream about, or, you know, somehow it would be woven in there. And I was like, this is so brilliant, because I'm one of those people that if I get to long non-dialogue, like just long prose, I'll like go, oh, is that important? I couldn't do that with your, because the storytelling was so in those places that there's no way you want to skip to dialogue. You know, our brains think that dialogue is where the action is, but you made that part of it where the action was, and you got to know more about them. Without that, you didn't know anything. So I thought it was brilliant.
Thanks. I mean, my books are also always heavy dialogue, because I agree with you as a reader. If I see long passages of prose, I'm like, what is this?
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think hopefully one of the things I've developed as a writer over the years is how to weave backstory into a story, so it isn't like, okay, we're gonna go have some backstory now, you know?
Yeah, it's now
1982. So to make it happen organically in the story, right?
Yeah, it's like, it's not like, oh, it's now in 1982 and this is what she's thinking. Like, it's not like that. And I thought, I don't know, I've rarely read a book that's that like that, and I thought it was so great. And then I look back on your other books, and you've written a lot of books, okay? So, I mean, you look so young. I'm like, how did she write this many books already? I mean, they're just coming out, you know. I didn't go past 14. I went 14, 15, 16, and then this one right at the beginning of 18. Right. I mean, so like, what do you got coming? You've got to have something coming towards, like you said, you've already written another book, so.
Yeah. I just submitted yesterday my next year's book.
Wow.
That should come out April next year, so yeah.
So basically, you're at least a one book a year author.
Yeah, not more than one book. I've never done more than one.
No, just one. Like,
I mean, I think it sort of goes in waves. So, when I got my first book deal in Canada, where I live, in 2010, when my first book was published, I'd already written. I had 3.5 manuscripts already written. So, I got a 2-book deal, but the 2 books of that deal I had already written, and then I was almost finished the book after. And then I had this book that I ended up coming back to later. So, in fact, the 4th book, Hidden, which was my first book with Lake Union that came out in 2014, that book, I think, took me 18 months to write. Still the longest it's taken me to write a book. And then, you know, I think really, it's more the last 4 books that I've written. So Smoke, Fractured, The Good Liar, and next year's book that I've really written on this pretty fast pace. Yeah, now we'll see. I might take a little break.
Well, I just think it's awesome when you guys can write like that. I mean, taking it from writing it to putting it out, it's a big process, and you know, for the editing and, you know, the cover and everything that you have to go through. That's why I was just amazed at how I was like, wow, what book number is then The Good Liar?
It's number 8.
Wow.
It's number 8, yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. That's quite an accomplishment.
It is crazy.
Yeah, and everybody's
like, how did I do that? What?
Yeah. And let me tell you, I mean, all my book reviewing people that I have over at Instagram, okay, they keep me up. They keep me informed, because I think I read a lot. They read way more than I do. And they kept saying, you've got to read this book. You got to read this book. And that's when I got in touch with you. And I was like, so they're going crazy over this book. And it comes out. Today is the 2nd. I'm going to release this interview next week. So it will have been out a week. And
out on the 3rd.
Yeah, crazy. And I'm just saying, like, you've already got so many people talking about it beforehand, which is the blessing of social media, because the buildup can be so great, you know? But
it's like instantaneous. You're actually like watching somebody read it, basically, and then you get their feedback. Boom!
I know. Isn't that crazy? I know.
It's good. It's great. When it's bad, it's like, well...
Well, I've only heard great, and I read it, so I'm only going to tell everybody else. I mean, you know, I was just so excited to be able to talk to you, and that I got a chance to read it. And thank you so much. Can we see the cover one more time?
Yeah.
For everybody.
So that's The Good Liar.
Yeah.
It's available everywhere. Amazon. If you're in Canada, it's also kind of all over the country in bookstores. So hope you pick it up.
Yes. And I will be putting all of your links underneath here so people can just go right
Great.
to the Amazon link and they can buy it. And all your social media links will be listed underneath there too so they can find you. And
Super.
Happy release day for tomorrow. I wish you all the
Thank
best.
you. Thanks.
Thank you,
Nice
Catherine.
you.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Everyone, thank you for watching my interview with Catherine. And it's a little late, but I'm just loving all the lighting. I don't know, everybody's like natural light is the best, but I think it's taken like, 5-10 years off my wrinkles in this kind of lighting. So anyway, she was so cute. And I'm going to be posting this video. You'll be watching it the week after this book comes out. It's called Good Liar. And then it's right up there with all the really good thrillers that are out right now. You will love it. So thank you, Catherine. Thank you, everyone, for watching.